as well.
Oh my God, this is way worse than I thought. International students come here with backpacks and raid the place. Some have $60,000 in the bank.
Food banks have never been as important as they are
Have you noticed a shift with the mainstream? I've got a couple mainstream reports here that I don't know if they would normally
I'm
be
a racist.
reporting on this stuff, but I feel like there might be a shift too. Like they're like CBC might be like clawing for their lives to stay relevant here, and maybe they are too. Here's
You think if anything, it could all just flip around and we go real crazy, start putting people in the cabs and just go like off the chains. Like almost like they did with the anti-vax, but way worse and with immigrants. I mean, it wouldn't be unprecedented. If anything, it would be like precedented by like every society in history as it got closer to its breaking point.
Yeah.
Important as they are today. In March, 2 million people used a Canadian food bank, but now some food banks.
2 million people in Canada using food banks. So it's a good thing those poverty things are getting better.
Banks aren't accommodating everyone anymore, and one type of client may no longer be welcome.
Is all these young kids coming with their backpacks saying they want help.
Here at St. Louis Outreach Food Bank in Brampton, students from outside the country aren't served anymore.
But they're just raiding anywhere to get anything they can. We can't handle that.
It'd be funny if that sign said no Indians.
No, everyone's running out of food.
No foreigners.
Yeah. She says everyone's running out of food. They have a whiteboard. That's racist out back, out front.
Food Bank has a whiteboard out front during opening hours. It says government regulations allow it to exclude international students. But is there a policy? I mean, somebody was telling my colleague that there's a policy.
I think it's on the window, sir.
The policy.
Yes.
The food bank posts a copy of what the government expects of international students coming to study here, that they be self-sufficient. Kenny, a Nigerian student who says he has a wife and daughter, showed up for food.
Wait, what?
His face not be shown. I asked,
what's Kenny doing with a wife and daughter on his international student visa? What are they doing?
No, he's not an international student. He's just an international guy. Listen to what he has to say.
This is what
come with enough money.
What?
Well, no, let him go.
I had a projection of how I was going to spend the money that I came in here with, but probably I didn't plan well. I don't know if I didn't plan well. I don't know if the economy was the opposite of what I thought it was.
The food bank.
So he thought that fucking doesn't answer the question of what he's doing here with his wife and his fucking kid.
What do you mean? So he didn't plan well, or the economy is not what he was told.
International student.
No, he's not a student. He's not. Why do you think he's a student?
This whole thing is about international students. Rewind.
Hang on, let's go back and see then. I don't know if he's a student. We have to listen to this part because but the kicker is that the economy is not what he thought it was. In other words, it's much harder to get by here.
Here that they be self-sufficient. Kenny, a Nigerian student who said,
"Oh yeah, you're right, Nigerian student."
Says he has a wife and daughter showed up for food. He asked that his face not be shown. I asked why he didn't come with enough money.
I had a projection of how I was going to spend the money that I came in here with, but probably I didn't plan well. I don't know if I didn't plan well. I don't know if the economy was the opposite of what I thought it was.
The food bank's board president says they were told some international students have money in the bank.
There's been a lot of abuse with people that come with $50,000, $60,000 in the bank, and they just want to get free food.
With 2,600 local families to help feed, she says the international students are too much. Food banks have seen foreign videos like this one online describing food banks as a place to get free food.
So it's kind of a
trend now that everyone's actually been advertised to just come here and immediately come to our doors. And we are bombarded.
Kenny is looking for another place to get help.
I'll have to go home.
Hey, yeah, we're talking.
It's so fascinating. All our systems are breaking down. Like food banks aren't even working as they're supposed to. Like everything's just not working properly.
Yeah,
I did have to fill out I meant to talk to you about the Sask election because
before I go in, I mean, I want to keep going on this. Actually, I shouldn't interrupt it, but it's the microcosm of that is like even my local school out here in the prairies has to look at shutting down because they
What do you mean?
Not shutting down, but they have like a hot lunch program that they're scaling back to, I think, 1 day a week instead of 2 because there's not enough volunteers. Which goes back to like my buddy Brendan and when he's talking about the towns going to shit, and it's just like, a certain amount of that, and I was like, man, maybe I can volunteer because it is only like an hour a week, but it's just like I just fucking can't, It's just. But you'd think there's somebody in this town with the kids in that school, I get it. Maybe it's harder, but even when I was a kid, by that time we were already well into the 2 working parents thing, and we still had enough volunteers to seem like a lot. We'll lose a lot of those sort of institutions because of our own malaise.
Well, because we're relying on the government for everything, right? Do you remember Elizabeth Nixon was on our Outlawed show and she was talking about the letters and the diaries from the women that she read in the 1800s and all that. And they were doing all kinds of outreach work. Like that was their job, right? During the day, they would get together and they would help the communities and they would organize all these community things. Like they would have been taking care of all this stuff.
So it's their fault?
No, it's that we're all now relying on the government, right? And we're all working too and relying on the government for everything.
So Food Banks Canada report overall findings in March. The data is going back to March, but in March 2024, there were over 2 million visits to food banks in Canada, the highest number in history. Food banks visits in March were at an unprecedented level, surpassing even last year's record-breaking number. 2. This year's food bank usage represents a 90% increase compared to March 2019, and there are signs that the food bank system is reaching its absolute limit. The rate of growth in the last 5 years far surpasses anything ever experienced by the network at a national level. The increased rate of change in usage since last year is just over 6%, and food banks are struggling to continue meeting the sustained elevated demand. I wonder if that's one of the sustainable development goals. This year's increase is happening against the backdrop of the ongoing affordability crisis and the uptick in unemployment rates, which is hovering around 8% in Alberta, including a significant increase in the unemployment rates among recent newcomers than in previous years. 3, the 1-2 punch of housing and food inflation hits those with the lowest income the hardest. No shit. 1/3 of food bank clients are children. The proportion of children under 18 accessing food bank continues to hold steady at 33%, 681,450 visits to food banks by children. 18% of food bank clients report employment as their main source of income compared to 12% in 2019. 6, nearly 70% of food bank clients live in market rent housing. Market rentals are the most consistent housing type for households that access food bank. Market rental, is that just like a rental from the market?
I don't know what that is actually. Is that
government housing?
Government subsidies or something? Subsidized housing?
Grossly inadequate provincial social assistance remains the most common source of income for food bank clients. So mostly 40% of them are on, disability or some sort of, they're on social programs.
Well, even if you're on like welfare and or like CCP, like the pension and all, that's not necessarily enough to live on. So
CCB isn't meant to be enough to live on. Welfare, arguably, I would say no. I guess it is, maybe.
Well, so when you're retired and you can't work any longer, what are you supposed to live on then if you don't have savings? CPP.
I don't know. That's where I would say that you probably should have figured that the fuck out. It's not the state's fucking problem.
Yeah.
But
we pay into that to be a solution. So
yeah,
I'm agreeing with you.
The only way it works is if they keep gambling the money and get like at least a 10 or 11% return on it every year.
But I think either way, you don't get what you put into it back. I mean, that's the other issue we should probably talk about one day.
I put in $4,000 a year, so that would be like almost a whole year of payments for my mom. So I'm like covering a person almost. 3/4 of a person. 32% of food bank clients are newcomers to Canada who have been in the country for 10 years or less. Newcomers to Canada have been in the country for 10 years or less account for 32% of food bank clients, a significant increase from last year. Most clients in this category arrived within the last 2 years. Recent newcomers to Canada who lose their jobs are less likely to access two income supports of last resort. So that's the kind of top 8 points from that.
All right. Can I dig into what's going on there a little bit with that temporary stuff? The number 8 point there.
The immigrants.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you're gonna drop.
Wait. We gotta.
What, you got this?
No, but I gotta show you this. This is the
land acknowledgement.
Longer report from the hunger count, the Food Banks Canada. The longer report.
Okay.
But I just thought it was interesting that because what we did was sort of the quick and dirty version.
Okay.
But that's what I wanted to show you was just the land acknowledgement.
Do you want to read it out?
Land acknowledgement in this fucking report. As an organization that supports a network of associations spanning coast to coast to coast, Food Banks Canada recognizes that our work takes place on the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples who have cared for this land we now call Canada since time immemorial. We acknowledge that many of us are settlers and that these lands that we live, work, meet, and travel on are subject to First Nation self-government. What? Yeah, right. Under modern treaty.
Well, so that's interesting wording, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, because we don't have any self-governance. Under modern treaty, unceded and unsurrendered territories or traditional territories from which First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples have been displaced. We are committed to decolonization.
Wow.
Wow. And dismantling the systems of oppression that have dispossessed Indigenous people of their lands, including the land on which we operate, and denied their rights to self-determination. So
what are you going to do about it besides virtue signaling about it? Give their land back then.
Yeah.
Give the land back.
Just a bit of it. Not even all of it. Just some of it. Just our fair share. We could even negotiate about what that fair share looks like, but no one's interested in having that conversation.
All right. Well, here's CBC going out of their way. It seems like, is it because they're on their deathbed or because they're doing a report? They're doing an investigative report on that, the student visa thing. That, what's it called again? That acronym, like FOIA almost, but it's anyways, let's listen to what they have to say and then I'll read the post that it came from. Hang on, I'm not sharing it, am I? Let me share it.
Yeah, is it an